And for the first hour, I'm very pleased to welcome to the show our regular, our hero. She is Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Hello. Where are we going to even begin tonight?
Well, I thought it's a very good question. You never know these days. But I thought what I thought would be interesting to talk to you about, because you know about Westminster, is Labour are so trapped in their own ideology, in their own lefty little world, that they desperately wanted James Cleverly not to win the Tory leadership race because he's a centrist. Frankly, in Tory terms, he's kind of a lefty. So they thought, well, he's the one that will be popular with the electorate. Well, I think they're entirely wrong. I think that what's been happening over the past year, and I think the process is accelerating, that the population of Britain, particularly now that they've been suffering the nonsense from Free Gear Keir and his ridiculous cronies, I think this nation is shifting right. And I think it is very good news for the Tory party that they haven't got a tedious... Not that James Cleverly isn't a very nice guy, but politically, that they haven't got a tedious continuity candidate who'll just do more of the same. The fact that they've now got two right-wingers and the Conservative Party, horror of horrors, might become right-wing, you know, what it's supposed to be, I think is great news for the Tories and bad news for Labour.
I think you're absolutely right about that. I mean, when you say you think the country's shifting to the right, it's always difficult because, you know, what we don't know is whether people think like us. It's so easy to think, well, you know, I'm infuriated and I'm becoming more right-wing by the day, so the rest of the nation must be doing so. But I genuinely think that the more we're provoked with the utter shambles of this current administration, the more people are genuinely shifting to the right because they can see that this left-wing administration just doesn't have the answers. Now, where Labour might have cause to be a little bit celebratory is that if the Tories actually elect a true right-winger as their leader, that is not so good for reform. And, you know, the truth is Reform were quite keen on the idea of a James Cleverly Tory leadership because that would have perhaps opened up more of the political ground for a proper right-wing party. I don't think we should get too carried away with all of this. You know, these right-wing, centre-ground, left-wing labels, not massively helpful to our listeners or, you know, even to the political anoraks. I always find these labels a bit annoying, really. Is Robert Jenrick particularly really properly right-wing in the way that those who are inclined to vote for Nigel Farage would understand that? I don't think so. This is a guy that I see kind of as the Tory equivalent of Sadiq Khan. He's a bit B-list, let's be honest. And as for Kemi Badenoch, I mean, yeah, sure, she's made some you know, fairly sensible pronouncements on the trans stuff. But again, this is a woman who stayed in government for many years and is part of the entire betrayal of the British people by the Tory administration. And, you know, not somebody who wrapped herself in a Union Jack and was willing to die on a hill for the cause. You know, she was a minister, she stayed within government, and sorry, I'm not totally buying into her actually representing what so many of us want to see.
Personally, I think it'd be better news for the Tories if Jenrick wins, but this is where I think we're at politically. I mean, this Westminster bunch, these MPs, I mean, most of them are they're so limited in their range of thought. If you give them
sorry to interrupt you, but just look at them there lining up. I mean, for goodness sake, who do you think you are? You know, lining up as if you're on the Royal Yacht Britannia doing some kind of photo shoot. You know, they all look so wooden, don't they? Is this really the best that we can do for our political representatives?
And can I just say something to the Tory party and maybe old Bob Blackman and the 1922 committee? Do something about your selection process, your leadership selection process. It's like the it's like the equivalent, the political equivalent of the X Factor. It is ridiculous. It's a drawn-out, stupid Simon Cowell-style saga that everybody gets fed up about. And you think, oh my God, how many more? And he's out now, and let's see who's going to proceed to the next round. Hooray! Oh, they've done it. It's pathetic. It's too drawn out. Why is it so difficult? And here's this is the cliche that so many of our Westminster friends still gather around, because if you give them a concept and they all sort of say, oh, yeah, that sounds about right, trying to get them to let go of that concept will probably take about half a century. And what I'm talking about is that clapped-out cliche, elections are won from the centre. I don't think they will be in the future, but I'll tell you, the vast majority of people in Westminster think that it will be. That's why the Tories thought, oh, Cleverly will be the one. I mean, Cleverly is like so many people in the Tory party. They're self-loathing. They hate the idea of conservatism. They'd be much more suited to the Lib Dems or the right of the Labour Party. This is what's gone wrong with the Conservative Party. Rishi Sunak had not the faintest idea about conservatism, nor, I would suggest, did Boris Johnson, and David Cameron don't even go there. This is the problem. That lot have forgotten what they're supposed to be.
Well, I understand the world from which they came. You know, these are public school boys who grew up thinking, well, from the type of families that we're from, we just vote Conservative, and they don't really know what that means. And the application of that ideology to today's set of problems hasn't produced any answers, has it? Yesterday I wrote about James Cleverly and what I see as his 7 deadly sins, of which
mathematics being one of them.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is a man that literally had the brass neck to stand up at the Tory leadership contest and claim at the conference, at the party conference, in his keynote speech, that he had dramatically improved the immigration situation. Say what? I mean, have any of us actually noticed? He claimed that he'd reduced net migration by 300,000. He claimed that he'd actually stripped citizenship of those who don't wish us well. He claimed all sorts, that he deported people and so on. I will be getting my teeth stuck into that long list of completely unsubstantiated, as far as I can see, claims in due course. But arrogant, out of touch. No, look, I actually know the guy. I like the guy. He's very affable. But, you know, this is a man who said, oh, we shouldn't have promised to stop the boats because we couldn't have done it. Well, yeah, you could. And you were actually Home Secretary, and therefore you were in a position to do something about this crisis. And did you do anything? No. You backed a policy, the Rwanda scheme, which, although it's a lot better than nothing, we all knew was unworkable. So I don't want to hear him saying, oh, well, we should never have promised to stop the boats. That should have been the number one thing that you were trying to achieve when you were actual Home Secretary.
Yeah, and then you've got a very, very right-wing, you know, no-nonsense Kemi Badenoch. You know, she's going to solve the migrant crisis, but she wants to stay in the European Convention on Human Rights. And when challenged on this, she said, well, how do you get to solve the migrant crisis if you stay in the ECHR? She said, well, the others who say that they want to leave, they're just looking for easy answers. Yeah, good idea. Let's leave the ECHR. So Jenrick, going forward, I think as he goes round the shires, as he tours the hustings to talk to the members, and by the way, let's not forget that while most of the Tory MPs have completely forgotten what conservatism is supposed to mean, the members around the country have not. All Jenrick is going to have to say is, I'll leave the ECHR. She won't. And that will lose her the tournament, I think.
What does leaving the ECHR actually mean? Because it sounds really boring, and people have been hearing about this. I'm not kidding. People have been hearing about this for well over a decade, and I could not blame them if they're feeling utterly fed up and sick of hearing Tory leaders saying they might.
You might, always might, yeah.
How about you just actually do it? Yeah. You know, it couldn't be that difficult, could it? But what does it mean? It means, for example, that we would not have to tolerate an Albanian criminal who has actually served time behind bars in this country and was supposed to be deported, coming back into this country, shacking up with some girl, getting her pregnant, having a child, and then claiming he can't be deported because he's got a girlfriend and a child. And apparently under human rights legislation, that means he can't be deported. Well, personally, if I were Home Secretary, I'd be testing that a little bit. But as it is, they like to say that the ECHR is a reason they can't do it. So let's just get rid of that thing. How about it?
Yeah, I mean, while we're on the topic, I keep asking this question. Nobody comes up with a good answer. What exactly does Britain get out of being a member of the European Convention on Human Rights? What do we get out of being beholden to the European Court of Human Rights? I think I know the answer. Precisely nothing except a loss of sovereignty.
I love these kind of questions, Kevin, and I think you clearly missed your vocation as a political editor who's actually able to ask those questions. It's a bit like, imagine playing some championship tennis player and just lobbing a really weird shot that loops way up into the air. And the champion tennis player is so bemused by this that they can't return it. Yeah. That's what would happen if you, Kev, confronted the Prime Minister with that really simple question. What do we actually get out of it? I would love to see what our Prime Minister would reply to that, because I'm sure it would be a load of bluster, an absolute waffle of which we're all too familiar from him.
By the way, just before we go to break, did you see the other Albanian migrant horror story yesterday? Same story, that only this guy got deported in 2016 because he was in jail for burglary, sneaked back into the country, got done again for burglary, went to jail and then was deported, sneaked back into the country again, and filmed himself in his £300,000 Ferrari, a bright, shiny red thing, driving around in splendour. He is allowed to stay for the foreseeable future because after his second sneaking back into the country, after his second prison sentence, he's claimed asylum, and because of the ECHR, that means we cannot possibly even consider kicking him out until that process has been completed, until his application is completed. I mean, you know, I think I've said to you before, I had an idea for the slogan for this show, for the political asylum. Stop the madness. This is just arrant insanity. And our politicians don't do anything about it. What's wrong with them?
I don't know what's wrong with them. The first thing I would be doing if I were in charge is saying, hello, Mr. Albanian. Can you just show you're working here, how you got that 300 grand Ferrari? I mean, unless someone has bought you that as an experience for half an hour on your birthday, I'm going to take a wild guess that you didn't buy that through your own endeavours, or certainly not through your own legitimate endeavours. So let's just scroll back, shall we, and just work out how you bought that vehicle. And I think I'm going to be impounding it.
And he takes nice luxury holidays. He recently filmed himself skipping down the beach. He was staying in the Cabis Bay Hotel, which you'll recall in 2021 was the venue for the G7 summit. The rooms are about 400 quid a night. I mean, welcome to Britain.
I tell you what, we actually need asylum from people like that. That's it.
Well, we need asylum from the politicians who allow him to lead this existence, this ludicrous existence. That it's just honestly, stop the madness, Isabel.